Hey everybody, welcome back to the Help Me Parent podcast. My name is Kylie, and with me as always is Dr. Ellen Moore. Hello.
Howdy.
Hello. And with us today, we have our early childhood director here at the church, Miss Erica Boyd. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good, thank
Good.
you.
Well, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you.
And we have you in your professional role today. You were a mom of 4 girls.
Yep.
And we've seen your mom hat, and now we get your professional hat. So I'm excited for that.
Yay.
So we're going to kick off a few episodes on the podcast talking about the different ages and stages of kids from birth to all the way up to high school and beyond. And we're going to take it piece by piece, go in-depth practical tips, helpful tips for parents and caregivers. So why not start from the beginning? We have our birth to 23-month-olds, so birth to 1-year-olds, and just all that entails them, their spiritual, emotional, mental development, and what you can do as parents. So I'm excited to start off this series, and a perfect guest to start off the series. So
Yes, this is the age Erica works with, and
yes.
she's been a mom of newborns to 1-year-olds a
Yes.
lot more recently than I have. So I think that is helpful.
Yes. Yeah. It's like you have all the qualifications for it. So,
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yes. So before we actually start, what is your favorite thing about this age group?
My probably but not just favorite thing, but I really love the age group of like 13 months up until like 18 months because you get to see them learn and change like every day. They're learning something new. It's like they start babbling and they start walking and they start doing this. And it's also before some of the attitude can sometimes come. I mean, it happens at that age, but not quite as much. And I think it is super fun. They're excited when they see you. It's like you're their favorite person in the world. So I think just the growth and development that happens from baby up until, you're now 23 months and all of that. But specifically, I just like that age because it is a fun little stage. Yeah. And you've like made it out of what is like so hard, that newborn stage.
Yes.
So, yeah.
What's so physically taxing
Yes.
in a certain way. But yeah, and this, I'm sure we'll dive into it more, but it is like almost you can see the brain neurons just firing. It's like you can almost see it happening.
Yeah.
The brain development at
Yep.
this age and stage, which is, you're right, super fun.
It is.
Yes. So we're
From the grandma side,
yes.
I just love the cuddles.
Yes, because she
is
is in that stage. How old is your granddaughter?
Well, no, she's
Or
2.
she's
She's
2?
over 2 now.
Yeah.
Man,
Um, I know time flies when you're having fun, which I love this too. But there's nothing like newborn cuddles.
yes.
Yeah.
It's so sweet. Okay, this is like it's like always a question when you have you've had 2 kids, you have 4. What is harder, 0 to 1 kids or 1 to 2 kids? What's the harder transition?
Hands down for me, 0 to 1 was super hard. Yeah. It has been the hardest transition.
Really?
Even up to 4. Oh, yeah. Because I went from like not having a child, knowing what to even do with the baby, having this routine of you are now giving your all to another person all the time, all the day, as to now that is the expectation. So for us, the transition from 1 to 2, absolutely, it adds work and all of that. But for me, it was an adjustment, just being responsible for another human and adjusting to that responsibility.
Yeah. Would you say the same?
I think I would say 1 to 2 was the bigger, because I felt like, totally agree with everything Erica said, from 0 to 1, when no kids to your first kid, it's all new, but you're able to do it just focusing on that one. And there's like, you can sleep when they sleep and things like that. Going from 1 to 2 is all the newborn stuff again, but with having this toddler and trying to navigate that. I heard somebody say, your first child changes your life 100%. Second child changes your life 200%. And after that, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're just going with it at that point.
Yeah.
So there's fun and challenges with all of it.
Yeah, totally. Okay, let's kick it off with the real stuff. So, what is some of the most important things that you happen with your child in birth to 1 year through their first year of life? Spiritual, emotional, mental.
Well, I think I would just say, to kick it off, that what Erica said about, you're now responsible for this other human being, this life that you can now actually see and hold. The responsibility that you feel is huge, that, oh my goodness, I am responsible, like, to actually keep this baby alive.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And then to also make sure they're thriving in all of these ways. So I think it's easy for it to feel overwhelming. I think something that I didn't necessarily think about soon enough, but I think it's kind of daunting and helpful all at the same time, is to think about when this baby comes and you're now holding them in your arms, you have 936 weeks with them until they graduate from high school.
That feels not right. It's crazy. Sorry.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
And so when you think of it, you've got 52 weeks a year, and it kind of puts things in perspective. And it kind of helps you keep the end in mind. So, number one, to get to age 18, which I will just say, having been there is nothing magic about 18, and you're not done at 18, but it is a milestone. So we'll just call it that. You can be so focused on the keeping them alive part, which you obviously have to do if they're going to make it to 18. Yes. You've got to keep them alive. But on the really making sure they're thriving and being nourished in every way, it kind of helps to keep that in perspective when you think, all right, I've got 936 weeks. I don't have time to waste. It doesn't mean that we've got to be like in fear or it's like,
right.
Oh my goodness, what do they need to be? What do I need to teach them this week?
Right.
Yes.
It's not that. It's just, okay, I'm just keeping this in mind.
Yep.
We're not going to be here forever.
Yes.
And that is both on we're not going to be here forever. I will sleep again.
Yeah.
But also, I'm not going to have this opportunity forever
Yeah.
to hold and cuddle them,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of taking advantage and really enjoying the moments and appreciating the moments.
Yeah. I think something I just remember thinking, I would rock them and think, one day you're not going to be in my arms. You're not. But I will say it was really a relief to me. And because we're talking about the 1 to 2 transition, I remember laying down super pregnant with my second, thinking, just remember when you have the newborn that one day you will sleep again.
Yes.
Because it is what took some of that. I was really fearful in the first one. And I think that could have been also why that transition was hard is, oh my gosh, is this my life forever? Like not sleeping and all of that and adjusting to the responsibility and everything that it was. You're right. It's this balance of it's not ever going to be like this again for the good and for the hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what all develops in a baby for that first 23 months of life, because I personally love hearing you talk about it, because every time I've heard you say it a million times, I'm just like, that's the coolest thing ever. And because a lot of stuff does happen in that. So I just want to let y'all dive down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. I mean, it's why this is one of my favorite ages, is because, and it actually starts when they're conceived, but by 2 years old, your baby's brain is developed 80%. The rest of their life, it's only going to develop 20% more, which is astounding to me and shows what an impact the first 2 years really have on that person, the person they are, the person they will be. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of research that goes into that. And part of it, Ellen went into it too, is because the neurons that form brain connections are firing so quickly all of the time. I mean, within it's like a second, it fires a million times, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the fact that they are making brain connections quicker than we could even imagine shows how God designed them to grow and absorb and learn through every interaction that they have. And it's why the simple things of smiling at them that we think, oh, smile, you could take it for granted. And yet that smile is triggering all of these connections that say I'm valuable, I'm loved, I'm important, people care about me, I'm safe. It's as simple as a smile. And that when they grow up and people smile and it triggers, I'm safe, I'm loved, that's because that developed when they were 2 weeks old or 4 weeks old, in that really tiny age. Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah. It's so true. And it's interesting what all is happening in their brain so quickly, like in the blink of an eye. All of this stuff is being learned. And that's where kind of being in the moment with your babies is so important. It's not just this bonding that needs to happen, which mother-child, father-child bonding is so important. The skin to skin, the eye contact, all of that, super beneficial. But also other things like you're mentioning, the eye contact, the smiling, the things that stimulate, the things that overstimulate, understimulate. And I think a lot of people have heard about infants who fail to thrive is because they're in an environment where they're never held. And so even just the act of holding your baby in a caring way is so crucial to their development of their actual brain, their actual physical development, their emotional development, their ability to connect with people ongoing.
Yeah.
It all stems from right here.
Yep.
This first 23 months. And so it's you almost can't overemphasize the importance of this stage and the safety and the when you are holding them, when you are responding to their cry, figuring out why it is they're crying and changing the diaper or feeding them. And then when they are awake, engaging with them, not just putting them down in front of a screen or, whatever, taking advantage and being intentional with this age and stage really is foundational and crucial to their self-esteem, their ability, like I said, to connect with people, to feel safe, to build trust. And all of that is so important on the spiritual side to then be able to make that connection to God. And as parents at every age and stage, we are giving our kids just this little glimpse of who God is as our Heavenly Father. And with newborns, 1-year-olds, we are showing them that God is attentive. He sees us. He cares for us. He cares for our need. He's a responsive God.
We spent the past few months as a team kind of talking about what kids give and can show of the Lord in the age and stage they're in. Of course, because a lot of time the focus is, oh, we're helping them become adults and stuff. But what is it now that babies show that is of God?
Yeah, what do they have to offer those around them? Yeah. A lot. They have a whole lot. Some of my favorites, as we were contemplating this, and Ellen had asked us to think about it for the different ages, things
Which
that
I'll just say to this, it's realizing that every human being has purpose for being on this earth.
Yeah.
And the purpose of a newborn to 23-month-old, their purpose, it's not preparing them for their future purpose.
Yeah.
That is certainly a piece
Yeah.
of parenting.
Yeah.
But it is also recognizing what their purpose is
Yeah.
right now.
Yes.
So that's what launched kind
Yes.
of this conversation that we've been having as a team.
And appreciating.
Yeah.
And looking for, you're not just a taker. You're not just here to take, although there is a lot that we are giving to them, but appreciating. It's even the volunteers here at the church. I've encouraged them, when you come, don't just think I'm here to give to you. Look at what these babies have to give to you. But they can give. One of the most fun ones I've thought about was they show us the joy in growth, because I think that is such a true thing for even us as adults. It's our journey with the Lord. You can sometimes want there to be a big, I want this issue solved in my life in like a big way. And we don't get excited about little baby steps, that term, baby steps of progress. But, we were talking about how when a baby takes their first bite of food, we've all seen a other person eat and take a bite of food for our whole life, all the time. And yet, when that little 6-month-old takes the first little cereal, dad's recording, mom's doing it, and they're sending it to all the family, and everyone's like, woo, they're showing their coworkers, look, my baby, she had her, grandbaby had first bite of food. We're so excited, and yet, really, what is that? We see people eat all the time, but it's a big deal because they're showing growth, they're showing progress, they're getting bigger, and that's joyful. And I think we should celebrate our own baby steps of progress like we do for these babies. And they're a good representation of that for all of us. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I think, too, it reminds kids, babies at this stage, just remind us how wonderful, full of wonder the world is, that we just, as grown-ups, we end up taking for granted.
Yeah.
And I remember when our granddaughter, last Christmas, so she would have been like a year and a half, and they took her just in the car to look at Christmas lights, and she's seeing all these Christmas lights on houses for the first time. And they're videoing, and it's like, how many times do we drive and see Christmas lights? But they're video, and she is, Mama, wow, Mama, wow. And it just makes everybody smile, and it's like, that is wow.
Yeah.
Look at that. These lights, these colors, and what that does to us on the inside.
Yeah.
Babies offer that. It's like, hey, don't forget how full of wonderful this world is.
Yeah.
And just stop and appreciate it and just say, wow, wow.
Yeah.
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 You get to learn a lot from them. Like you said, it's not just what you're giving them, but also what they can give you. And it doesn't seem like that with a little baby who can't talk, walk, speak. But I love that. Let's talk about the physical developments because obviously in this first year, they're learning a ton of things. They're learning to sit up and hold their head, walk, all the stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of times I correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like parents have that expectation of my child has to do this by this amount to stay on track. But what if they're behind? What am I going to do? Are they going to be behind the rest of life? We talked about that earlier. How can parents practically like know how their child develops physically and if they are quote unquote behind?
I mean, I think at least the way I've done it and what is offered to most people is well checks. I mean, you take them to the doctor, and honestly, and that's what the doctor is looking for at a well check is you're like, here they are, and they say, can they do this? Can they do this? Can they do this? We had with our fourth baby, and I mean, that's what was so funny is I've had 3, I know developmentally, but she was. And I had been just having a feeling that her eating wasn't what it should be. And we took her in at 4 months old and she had a certain weight. Well, we took her in at 6 months old and she was the same weight, which was definitely not how it's supposed to be. And so, but I mean, so it was like, okay, what do we need to do? We talked to the doctor. They recommended a different formula. We tried that. By 9 months old, she was totally fine, back on track. So, I think you just have to use your practical resources that you have. And of course, then with whatever they're telling you, it's like, oh, okay, she's not talking yet, or she's not doing this. Then you look at what you can do for them in the natural. How can I do it? But also then that's when you take it to the Lord and you say, okay, Lord, you care about this baby. Will you help me, do what needs to happen with them and have them grow at their pace and at their rate?
I think as parents, we've talked about this on a lot of episodes, there's so many opportunities for fear to come in as parents. You're feel the weight of the responsibility of keeping this human being alive and making sure that they are thriving and able to reach their potential that kind of just innately that God put in them, and somehow you are responsible for this to a certain degree. So there is just all kinds of opportunity for fear to come in, and I think as parents we just have to be very cognizant of that and be constantly fighting that and not giving into that, because you realize, oh my goodness, they haven't gained weight in 2 months, and this panic starts to form on the inside, and it's like, oh no, I'm doing something wrong, or now they're going to be struggling and they haven't had the nourishment that they needed, and their brain's not going to be fully developed in their bodies, and it just goes on this rabbit trail, and before you know, you are in this dark place that you have spiraled down to ask the Lord from the beginning, Lord, give me your perspective.
Yeah.
His perspective, he sees all 936 weeks and beyond all at once. And so to one, ask the Lord for his perspective, not panic, not give in to the fear. We can't keep the fear thoughts from coming, but we can keep them from taking root and residing and being looped and looped and looped. We do have control there. And remembering there is every human being is so uniquely made.
Yeah.
There is no magic norm.
Yes.
There are norms. There are these milestones. There are things that the pediatricians are looking for. But if your child you've had it in your mind, oh, they're supposed to be walking by 12 months, and you're at 13 months, no step, 14 months, no step, that fear wants to come in there, and it's like, oh my goodness, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And at 15 months, it clicks, and they're off and running.
Yeah.
So to not get too honed in on comparisons. It's so easy to compare your child to the chart or to your niece or nephew or your best friend's baby or whatever, to really not give in to that and say, okay, Lord, if there's something I need to pay attention to, you'll show me and show me how to address it or strengthen them in this area, things that I can do, but to do it from a place of strength, not from a place of fear. And not from a place of comparison. Well, they should be able to because everybody else is able to. Maybe they're not ready. And that's okay. The other side is also true. They start walking at 9 months. Oh, I have a brilliant child. Oh, your child's not walking. Well, mine was walking at 9 months. And to not make it a pride thing.
Yes.
So just keeping it all in perspective of, hey, we're 12 weeks, we're 52 weeks into this 936 week thing. We've got plenty of time to make progress, to make up for any weaknesses or deficiencies. There, we've got time.
You know, one thing that comes to my mind as you're talking about this, you know, we're teaching our baby to be a baby, you know, we're growing them up. Really, this stage too, you're growing as a parent and you're developing patterns and habits that the 936, you need to think. So, because as you're talking in comparison, you need to learn it when they're 3 weeks old because you're going to have an 8-year-old and they're going to be different than the rest of their friends. And so you have to then be able to say, I'm not going to compare my 8-year-old to anyone or my 12-year-old. And it's like, this is the opportunity as a parent that we learn how to handle these things with this baby so that we develop these habits of, I know how to respond to this and I'm not going to respond in fear or comparison. But I think that's true with a lot of different habits you develop at this stage. Like even, you know, just how you engage with them. I'm in this with you. All of those kind of heart habits are what you're going to build on as they get older. And sure, things change, but a lot of this doesn't change. A lot of this, like, I go to the Lord and I hear from him and I'm not afraid and don't let fear dictate. That is, you're growing and learning how to parent even in this stage.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And because we are growing spiritually as a parent, hopefully, we have opportunity for a lot of growth here. And we can take our cues from the Lord and how he parents us. If he's our Heavenly Father, that can be a good indicator of how do I need to respond right now. It's like, okay, if I haven't gotten this certain principle of spiritual progress that I have in my mind, is God like, oh my word, she's never going to get it. We are on DEFCON 5, people. We have got an emergency. He's not responding like that. So it's like, okay, Lord, you don't respond like that to me. So I take my cues from you. I don't respond like that to my child.
Oh, that's so good. And I think how you do respond is important because when you are becoming, if especially first-time mom, this is your first time, this first 23 months, you've never done it before. And feelings of overwhelming can come in, anxiety, postpartum depression gets thrown in there a lot. What do you do when you feel overwhelmed and anxious? Because like those feelings are valid. They're not great leaders, but you do feel them. And what do you do when you feel them?
I'm just there's a couple of things, of course, but I will tell you some really practical things that were told to me. Actually, one of them by Ellen. She might not even have thought of it. I don't know. But one thing she had was you take a break. Like you can literally, like, I just need a location change. Like I just kind of need to take a break, even with your kid. But it's like, go on a road trip, go to a new location, just go do something a little different, because sometimes, at least for me, it was like I could get so honed in on like, this is the problems that I'm dealing with right now, that you just almost need a perspective shift and to just go somewhere else or have a little day away in a new environment really was very helpful to me at this stage where like you're always at home, you're always doing the same routines. To get a little bit just out either with the kid or without your child was helpful to me. That's just what came to my mind first.
Yeah. I think something else is to just keep in mind when you, especially as a mom, and it's good for dads to be aware of this and moms themselves, but you have just, your body has been taxed for the last 9 months in a way it's never been taxed before. And it takes a while for our physical bodies to recover. And I've heard anything from that it takes another 9 to 12 months for your body to recover physically from giving birth, from pregnancy and giving birth. So to give yourself some space and grace to recover and to say, you're going to need a nap. When it's so true, when your baby sleeps, you sleep. You know that there are times you're going to have to let the dishes wait, you're going to have to let the vacuuming wait, and take a nap. And because I think that's when we can get in trouble in our mental and emotional and spiritual state when we're just physically exhausted. And we haven't given ourselves permission and time and space to recover. So I think that's a very real thing, to realize my body is still recovering. God knows that. Make sure your husband knows that. Remind your mom or your sister or your sister-in-law or your best friend of that, and take advantage of the support systems.
That's what I was thinking.
That you have to, hey, I just need a nap. Is there somebody who could just come and be here if the baby wakes up and give me 2 hours? And, you know, because you know it, the first time your baby sleeps 4 hours straight, it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm a human being.
I haven't lost my mind
exactly.
forever.
It's like, oh, there I am. And that's with just 4 hours. You know, and then when you're able to get 6 hours and then 7 hours and then 8 hours, it's like, oh, okay, I haven't lost my mind. I was just exhausted. And so taking advantage of these little things, and when you don't have that support system, I think you're so right. As hard as it is, put that baby in the car and just go take a walk at the park, get outside, do something for a change of scenery. It does something in our brains. It actually triggers something neurologically and physiologically that can help get us out of that funk or that overwhelming. It's like, oh, the world is still out here. The grass is still green. The sky is still there. The sky has not fallen. We are not in Armageddon.
Yes.
Even though my house may look like Armageddon has hit. So there are some real, like you said, practical, physical things to do to help you through this. And it is also, you know, sometimes as followers of Jesus, our conception and practice of how we maintain that connection with Jesus might have looked one way before having a baby or a second baby or a third baby. And once you have this new human being, all of a sudden we have this expectation that my connection with Jesus is still supposed to happen in the same way, at the same time, for the same length of time. And it's really not possible for it to be the same. And God understands that. He actually designed families to work this way, and he knows that additions to family requires some change in our schedules and our routines and our practices. And he's there saying, hey, let's do this together.
Yeah.
It's not, oh, well, I didn't read my Bible this morning. He knows you were up 3 times in the night feeding.
Yeah.
He doesn't have this expectation, like we don't expect something of our newborn that we expect from our 18-year-old.
Yeah.
The expectations are different, and God understands that. And since he designed human development to work like this, he gets it. And he's not offended by it. He's saying, hey, let me just join you. And you do it with him. We had lots of conversations like that when yours were little.
And I one time heard a minister say that he was talking to somebody about reading their Bible. And they're like, well, something about reading it enough. And the person says, well, you can't ever read the Bible enough. And he said, well, let's think about what you just said. Because if that's true, then we're constantly not doing enough. That's not who God is. He doesn't have this like, you just should keep reading. We all know we can't just read our Bible forever. So therefore,
24/7.
Right. So therefore, there is enough for a day. That's your daily bread, that what is you needed for that day. And who's to say if that's one verse, if that's a word, if that's a chapter or more than that? Every day, the Lord knows here's what you need as your daily bread. And for us to think, well, I haven't done enough, that is fear. That is our own expectation of what it's supposed to look like, instead of realizing that the Lord has a daily bread for us and we can get enough. And it might be for 2 minutes rocking the baby and you're like, I'm going to fall asleep, but Lord, I need your help. And he's like, I'm with you. And that's the daily bread I need for that day. And sometimes that is enough to sustain me that day. I'm not saying there, you look for him all the time, but he's not expecting too much of us. And we have to catch ourselves expecting, I'm expecting too much of me. And that's not from the Lord. And I have to put that aside and not give in to that fear. Because the truth is, one day when you have an 18-year-old and they're away and they're doing a late night football game and then they've got to be at senior days at 5 a.m., there might be a day when your child's 18 again where that daily bread, because you're giving to them and you're showing up in their world, might not look like an hour a day, So again, it's these habits that we learn now that will carry us through all of our parenting life.
Yeah, and the routines and that daily bread it's not always the same bread in the same way. Sometimes bread is bread, sometimes your bread is soup, sometimes it's meat, sometimes,
Right.
Sometimes it's a snack, sometimes it's a whole meal.
Right.
So, and we intake it, consume it in different ways. So you're used to reading your Bible. Now all of a sudden you're like, every time I read, I am falling asleep. So now maybe it's listening.
Yeah.
And you've got a YouTube something or an app that reads the Bible to you, and you're listening to it while you're rocking or while you're sleeping. And, and God's word is going in even as you sleep. I've done that when, either I was tired or when I was sick, and reading is a struggle because I'm sick and my mind, I can't focus, my eyes can't focus. Sometimes I'll just put on an app and let it read to me. And it's like, Lord, I'm going to trust that your word is going in and giving me my daily bread.
Yeah.
That's such a good way to look at it.
I love too, because if you're listening to it and you're rocking your baby's hearing it too.
That's right.
And that shows too how the Lord uses this age and stage. What you might need is actually also benefiting your baby, versus if you just read it, it's going to help you and that'll help your baby. But now we're praying out loud. Now we're reading out loud. That's engaging your baby in God's word and all of that. And that is a gift to them too.
Yeah, totally. Final thing, what is one piece of advice that was helpful to you in your first 23 months of parenting with a birth to 23-month-old, or that would be helpful to someone today?
I think it would be to just slow down your expectations, and just physically you can have this pressure of like, I want to look a certain way. I want to start working out. I want to go get back to hanging out with my friends like this. You can have this like hurried mindset, even of like, I just want to get a little bit older, or again, you just want to get a few things done. I want to have a clean house again, and to just slow down and be okay with the really slow pace. Be intentional when you're feeding your baby to just sit and enjoy being with your baby, as much as you can. And you're right, when you get the bigger ones, it is harder. You've got them going on, but just slow them down too. And it's like, guess what? We have a baby, so we can't do that. And we're going to just sit here, or whatever that practically looks like. But that would be my advice. Yeah.
I was thinking along the same exact lines, that to slow down and enjoy the moment and just be present, and to not wish them away, that, oh, I can't wait till they can hold their own bottle. I can't wait till they can feed themselves. I can't wait till they can give themselves their own bath. Not wish it away, but just be present, enjoy it for what it is, and be honest when it's a hard day.
Yes.
It's like, today was a hard day, and we have to remind ourselves it won't last, that in this moment won't last forever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, being present and enjoying the moments, because those 52 weeks go really fast. And this is where I've heard it said a lot, the days are long, but the years are short. And so to enjoy the days and not wish them away.
Well, this was a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, Erica. We love having you on here. And we hope this encourages you with your birth to 23 months old. Just remember that you can parent and we can help.